Good day, everyone. I welcome you to another simplified episode of chemistry, where we simplify chemistry for WAEC and JAM students, still on standard separation techniques. So I'll be explaining centrifugation and chromatography. So what is centrifugation? Centrifugation is used to separate small insoluble particles from liquid quickly. That's what we use it for. And the machine we always use is called what? The centrifuge. Now let me explain. For example, if you want to separate, let me give you a common example, mud from let's say water. If you want to separate these two particles, it is very easy. What you do is that you place these ones in a beaker in your centrifuge. There's a beaker in there in your centrifuge, which is a machine. Then you spin, it will start spinning. It will start spinning, all the beakers will start spinning. Then after a while, the water particles will be suspended because it is less dense. It is less dense, while the mud will be at the bottom, which is going to be in form of a residue or a PPT, precipitate. So your less dense particle will be at the top, while or your less dense substance will be at the top, while the mud is going to be at the what? At the bottom. And you can as well use this to separate plasma from blood. You can use it to separate plasma from blood. Just for you to take the blood sample from your body, you put it. I'm not saying you should try it, I'm just telling you how it works. So you put it in the beaker, in the centrifuge. So when it starts, the test tube, not the beaker. So once it starts spinning, at the end of the OT, you are going to see your red blood cell, because your red blood cell is more dense than plasma. So plasma will be at the top, which is less dense. Then the one that is much dense or more dense will be at the, which is denser liquid, will be at the what? At the bottom. Then in between, there is always a boundary between the two, and you are going to see your what? Your white blood cell, and then platelet and the rest will not be there. So you can as well use this in terms of separation of what? Of blood, where you are going to see your red blood cell, your white blood cell, and your what? And your plasma. So the machine that you use there is called what? The centrifuge, and it's used to separate small insoluble particles from what? From liquid quickly, whereby the soluble particles, they will go down, or the dense particle will do what? Will go down, while the remaining one will do what? Will stay at the top. So that's what centrifugation is all about. What about chromatography? Chromatography is used to identify different components of a mixture that are soluble in one solvent, because like what we always say, we have two phases in there. We have the mobile phase, or the stationary phase, and the what? And the mobile phase. The stationary phase is usually a solid phase, while the mobile phase is usually liquid or gas phase, gaseous phase. For the stationary phase, just as the name implies, it is stationary, it doesn't move. While for the mobile phase, it moves. Let's say this is a beaker, and you put a filter paper in here. Let me make it longer. There's a black dot in here, and this is the water level. So the reason why I'm using filter paper, because filter paper can actually absorb water. It's absorbent. It can absorb. The water level might be here, but the water will still be going up. Just like your toilet roll or your tissue paper. If you put a tissue paper in water to this level, you will still be seeing the water rising up, the level of the water rising up. So because of there is an ink here, after a while, if you come back to this, I'm not saying you should dip it inside or just leave it here. There should be a marker so that you can be sure of what you are doing. After a while, you see that there is a rise in this particular ink. It can spread, it can travel fast. And sometimes you might see different colors. One can be here, one can be here, one can be here. Then you bring them out, you measure it. This is the original place, and you are having a color here, you're having a color here, you're having a color here. So the affinity. What I mean by affinity is that the rate at which they travel from the time it was dipped into the water to the time in which it was removed. So if, for example, you have a uniform mixture, or different components that can dissolve in that same mixture, after a while, all of them will start rising up. But as long as they are not, you can't dissolve them in that same mixture, You cannot dissolve, let's say, let me do something like this. Here is A, here is B, here is C. Now, at the end of the whole thing, this one rises to here, this one rises to this place, but this one did not move. That's to show that this sample C, this sample A is not soluble in water, it's not soluble in that solvent, that uniform mixture you use. But sample C is soluble, that's why it travels. Sample B is also what? Soluble, that's why it travels. So that's how you use your chromatograph, that's what you use your chromatography for. And make sure the mixture, the solvent rather, or whatever you are using, they are soluble in the what? In that one solvent. All of them are soluble in that one solvent. So that's how you use your chromatography and you use your what? Your centrifugation. Chromatography is usually used in terms of ink, in terms of separation of dyes and the rest. So it's just as if the affinity, the rate at which they travel in that same medium. So that's what chromatography is known for. While for centrifugation, it's talking about their various density, which of them is less dense and which of them is what? Is more dense. The one that is more dense or the one that is denser will stay at the bottom, while the one that is less dense will do what? Will stay at the top. That is the end of this particular class. If you find this video useful, please drop a comment in my comment section. And if you have any question regarding what I've explained so far, or there's a part of it you are not really clear with, also drop a comment in my comment section. Don't forget, chromatography is talking about movement in a medium, and the medium we always use, it can be gel, it can be filter paper. Why for centrifugation, it's talking about what? Density, and you use that in terms of separation of blood, whereby you get your plasma, you get your RBC, which is your red blood cell, and your white blood cell. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.